it's 5 minutes gone past the 9 o'clock, and happy am I this morning to be in the company of greatness, brilliance, and these are just some tame words that can be used descriptively to introduce Mr. Sylvan McIntyre. I like to call him the Honorable Sylvan McIntyre.
Okay.
Good morning, bro. How are you?
Hey, good morning to you, Premier. In the sense, well, Primero is just meaning first.
Okay.
I mean that you have some levels that you have attained.
Yes.
And
yes.
Flowers to you this morning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for association with people like you.
Yes, no problem.
Okay, good.
You're welcome.
All right. Well,
so good morning to you, and good morning to all listeners, viewers, followers of our program on Mondays. And it's always my pleasure to be here. And it's always my pleasure to be in your company as well. We have good communication. I think the synergy between us goes well. The energy level is always up. And I think our audiences view and benefit from and listen and get results from what we discuss.
Well, we always do, and this morning it won't be any exception.
Right.
Of course, we like to do a review from last week and things that might have happened over the weekend. Because this morning we want to delve into communication.
Yes.
And so forth. But of course, you're a roving man. You know, I really think, I mean, you're a disaster specialist, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But I really think that you are being underutilized.
Okay.
You know, you've got such a wide range of expertise as it relates to disaster mitigation and service and so forth, that you make it your responsibility to look around Grenada.
Yeah.
Even if you're not actively employed or under the employ of the public service anymore.
Yeah.
But it's part of, and you have circumstances that push you to doing that.
Yes, of
especially
course.
as it relates to road safety, and so you've always on the run. What have you picked up over the weekend?
Oh, quite a bit. But as you mentioned, thank you again for the accolades and so forth. But you're on point technically to a large extent. Well, I don't like to blow my own trumpet or so, but I felt at one time that I was underutilized in terms of what I think and I know I could have given back to Grenada.
Yeah.
And that is one of the reasons I also chose, among others, to stay, in my opinion, relevant in terms of the knowledge and experience that I have to continue to share with, general public and different groups and audiences and so on that we would come across. There was one time I sat in an office in a position which I was placed, and I said, oh my God, they don't need my brain.
Yeah.
And I'm honest with that, because I sat there and there's a saying that goes, brighten the corner where you are. And so when I looked at my placement and what I could have brought to the position that I held then and the place where I was, I said, I have this that I could contribute. So I met to the staff that were there. We had conversations and so on, and we started working on things in areas where I thought I could have contributed. So in life and in things, when you have something that you can give to others, when you expire, otherwise it's of no use then. So you try to maximize what you have to the benefit of either your country or for others, and really and truly that's my living focus, to make sure that I see people happy, I see my environment and my country improve, and that's the greatest payback I have. That drive me. It gives me. It's a catalyst. It's the enzymes that keep me going, and so I continue to do that. But despite people's feelings and their understanding, like you, in terms of I could have been utilized differently and more, I don't mind having my rest and my down periods and so forth. But yes, there were times when I felt that I could have been contributing more in a different way.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, God understands, and I would do what I can, and it's not about dollars and cents. Definitely, it's about understanding, I think, one's role, finding your niche, finding your calling.
That's the most,
and I think
that's the happiest thing that could happen.
Yes, finding your calling, and what you can do to make a difference to people and things.
I'm not perfect at it, but you see, this what we were doing here this morning.
Yes,
I look forward to getting up 3:30 so that I can be here on morning.
Oh yeah,
I look forward to that. it's my energy. It's
yes,
my fuel.
Of course. And the thing about it, even in the professional setting, and we're going to come to our review in a minute, but even in the professional setting, in your job place and so forth, if you are in a manager or supervisory position, you look at your subordinates and look at where they can be best fitted, where they are qualified and they find joy in delivering. There are some people who have qualifications for particular things. You go to college, you go to university, you study certain things, but you realize, in the job place you're getting money for, you're not really enjoying that. You're not happy. And so your production level will be less. And so you have to be insightful enough. You have to be vision focused in terms of understanding where people can produce more in the areas that they enjoy best. It's not a way people think that they can get away from the job. Some people, they do the job by avoidance.
Yeah.
They just make the hours, make the time, and they get away. But you look at people in areas, and you look and you watch, and you realize, you know what, that person really takes the pride, the passion, they enjoy what they're doing. That's the way. And I think when you find those niche in life, when you find your own calling,
it's not a work
and a placement. No. It's not a work. And anytime you are in a position like myself, anytime I find, well, you know what, this feel laborious, this feel like a job or something that is difficult, that I don't want to be doing, I'm not enjoying that, I switch.
Yep, definitely.
And so, yeah, it's a good point to speak about the weekend focus, and we like to speak about the flowers and people that we need to emulate and recognize in our communities, and so and I think a lot sometimes we do not recognize the small community shops and these people who make their subtle contributions to
when
society.
The supermarkets are closed, you can knock their door. Even if the shop door is closed, you could knock and say, Miss Tima, cooking and salt run out.
Yes.
And she'd crawl out of bed and come and do it for you.
Yeah. So I traverse between the town of St. George and Grand Tank St. Andrew pretty often, because, part of my roots are on that end as well. And there's this first and last shop. It seems like, that shop close to Lime and Light? There's a little shop on the left-hand side there that's open very late and very early in the morning, even on Sundays.
Lime and Light.
Lime and Light is by Talparade on the other side.
Oh, right. Yeah. That little shop. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that lady is there, and some of them, a gentleman is there, and they give you the kind of a service, and they're very polite and everything. I think these are sometimes the subtle contributors that we really need to recognize and say thank you. And we want to really express our gratitude to them as well. Again, a group of persons that we always beat quite a bit. And we say sometimes the politicians and bus drivers, they seem to have gone to the same university or the same school. That when they're normal people, and when they get into that, they change completely. You know what?
Brain transplant.
Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. Good. I have to apologize for that, actually. But there are some of them, including the politicians, and busmen, that we need to really say thank you to. And not very often we hear nice thing about the people who commute and take our children and our workers to work. And this morning I take the opportunity to give flowers to the bus drivers and conductors who take the time to do the crossings. I've seen a few crossings last week where the conductors would come out, they would put on the hazard lights, they would signal, and they would ensure that the children, even the older persons,
cross.
That they cross and so forth. The less abled and challenged physically people and so forth. I want to really say that, bus drivers, we thank you for your service, and we ask you to continue. Those who are not so up to it, and you see the dollars and the cents, you're going to lose more dollars because you don't make a lot of sense with what you do. So those who give that kind of a sterling contribution, we want to recognize you and say thank you, and continue to improve and to keep doing that service, because they are part of the energy that keeps the economy rolling. We don't have the private persons on our road with so many vehicles that would take people to and from. So those guys who commute public transport, we need to be able to say thank you to them. And those who go off with the old school buses and so on that take the odd times of the day and weekends to get people across, they too must be commended for the effort. I'm not just saying it now on waves, but we must be able to meet these people and physically say thank you for your contribution.
While at this, just reminiscing a bit as you brought it up with the busman, there's a particular busman now that I'd like to recognize. I hope, he listens to me every morning.
Okay, good.
Martin, I can't remember his surname.
What's his route?
Sates to Grenville,
right.
passing through Mount.
What number bus is that? 10?
I don't know.
I think 9 or 10, because I think Carriacou is 11 and 12 or something.
I don't know, but while I was going to McDonald College,
yes,
he was a conductor on Alan Packer bus, the boat bus.
Right.
But now he's a driver, and he's still the same courteous, well-serviced person. Mm-hmm. And Martin, the Boopy, I usually call him the Boopy.
Right.
Just big up your whole self, man.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great.
Since my days in McDonald College, he's been involved in that industry.
Okay, good. Very, very, very good.
Moved up from a conductor on the boat bus.
Right.
And now he drives his own bus.
Right. If we continue with that, we have a few more minutes on that.
Yeah.
So, over the weekend, we had the drag race people.
Right. And Jeremy Peters and the guys.
We want to commend them for that. Flowers to them, because you see, that's a growing sport. Despite there's some level of risk with it, but what I saw is the level of safety improvement that they've invested in. The ambulances are there, and there are responders that are there, and they put in more stuff to ensure that the people are safe. And it gives, as a matter of fact, it is attracting the generation that are into cars.
Into speed.
Well, I don't want to say speed. Speed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not just, and speed in that case is not necessarily just on the roads.
Yeah.
But the speed with which they do everything, they grow faster.
Yes. Oh, yeah, of course. And they tell you about the turbocharge and the NOS and all of that. And so
I don't know.
We hope that they don't transfer it into our public space to generate that kind of a risk. But we want to say hats off to them, flowers to them for staging this event. It is becoming, it's regional, and soon maybe it might be almost global.
Yeah.
When I counted about 7 countries of the Caribbean at least that are participating in that sport.
Yeah. They have a good network. As a matter of fact, one of the freight liners is on board with them that brought down
the cars
from
through
the North Caribbean.
Right. Yeah. That's really cool. And finally, a spill out of this. The road safety issue. I traversed that road, and I saw some vehicles, at least on the Grand Etang Road, between last night and this morning very early. There were at least 4 vehicles on the road in accidents and runoff, etc. One from the St. George area, just as you get off the Black Forest area. There's a corner there, and we speak about centripetal and centrifugal forces that will pull towards or away from corners. Pull or push.
Yeah.
No, well, you understand the physics in that. And no, if you pull a corner too heavy, that's what will happen. So that driver who was coming from St. George apparently pulled off on the left side. Maybe I don't know if it's speed or if it's vision. Destruction or otherwise, but that vehicle is on its side. The point I really want to make here, and there are others with the accident, but the point I want to make on that vehicle is that it went down into a drain that is a slipper drain. Not a slipper, sorry, a box drain. So what we were trying to do on our program of recent time, trying to emphasize the engineering designs of our roads. I went up to the West Coast, Sates, Victoria, and again over the weekend, and I saw some of the old farm roads, one of the farm roads, and on either side there was so much more space they could have created. There's some massive box drains. Now, 2 vehicles will struggle to pass.
Yeah.
Now, if one get off and get down into that box drain,
gotta get a tow truck.
You have to get a tow truck or a crane or something to get it out. The point is, I think we have to re-emphasize our engineering designs. We have to be on par with what's happening. It will cost a little bit more. It will take a little bit more time, but you will get more safety out of it, and I think more resilience and longevity. Because if you put the grills, not necessarily the steel grills, but you can also do concrete slabs.
Yeah.
And you do the grooves that will base them on top of it. So even if you have to do cleaning in some places, you just raise them up and you can clean them, and you get more road space. And I think we need to look at those safety factors and look at the long-term economics in doing those things better. In Grand Etang, we spoke about it quite a bit, and I'm happy to say that what some of the engineers have been doing in terms of those who have the construction work there as well, they are being filling back, which was one of our recommendations. Some of those deep slipper areas, box areas, that they would put a solid foundation and then you build on it and then you cast it. So from a box you create a proper slipper. You get a wider drain, safer to move, and easier if you have a slip off. And I've seen it so many times where vehicles run off the road. So it's one of the things going forward I think we need to be able to focus on the road safety factor, but it doesn't take away from the drivers being conscious and vigilant on our road. And the final person. You remember that guy that used to be doing the decorations across Grenada Pilot?
Yes, that had the cottage.
Yeah,
the cottage.
I saw him a couple of days ago. He's gone in seclusion a little bit. He's off from the mainstream doing stuff and so on. And I think people like this, with the skill set that he has in terms of the decorations that he used to be doing around country for festive events, public setting and private setting, those people who fade off into the shadow, we need to be able to, in my opinion, recognize them. And I spoke last week on a program in terms of the people who stand out, not necessarily call them national heroes, but people who've made contributions to the aesthetics and the environment of our country. We need to be able to show them that kind of appreciation a bit more. He's one of those I know that contributed quite a bit. I think he has a lot of skills. I'm not too sure that a lot of it which he's gotten a bit weaker and he's in his own space. Yeah. And I was hoping that some people were going to learn from him. I don't know if the other people who are into that industry, they spill off, but I think he had a lot, and he has a wonderful place where he lives in that area where I think even people are looking for a quiet space for retreat and so on. It's one of these.
He likes those sort of sceneries because I don't know if you remember that it's an ancient house, right, and the Dunfermline estate that we call the cottage. Right, he had that. It eventually turned it into a party spot.
Right, I remember.
Right? That was his place.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And so now, where he moved to now, you could see that's his kind of environment.
Right. That's, I think, somewhere in Ressource, that area.
Yeah.
Very good.
And he's actually a pilot, huh?
Yeah, he's an actual pilot. Yeah, man. And he gave contributions to Green. So I just wanted to. I think that was not too much a long entry, but it is, I think, a useful thing in terms of recognizing, identifying the issues and so forth on our programs.
It is important. Well, tell you what we do before we get into the meat of this morning's conversation. We take our first commercial break and we'll be back, folks. This is To The Point for today, Monday, the 29th of September. It is actually the final Monday in the month. We take a break and we'll be back after these messages. Don't you go anywhere.
Are you ready to take charge of your money, build wealth, and protect your family's legacy? Then join us on October 9th, 2025 at Radisson Grenada Beach Resort for your Financial Future 2.0, Legacy, Literacy, and Liberation, a one-day financial summit designed to break cycles, build wealth, and leave a lasting legacy. You'll gain real-life budgeting hacks, a money mindset reboot, steps to create generational wealth, and practical tips on investing, estate planning, insurance, health, and business finance, all from expert speakers who know how to turn knowledge into action. With 2 inspirational keynotes, 3 powerful panel discussions, and 6 breakout sessions, you will leave with your personalized action plan for success. Don't wait. Secure your seat today. Tickets are EC $350 at disruptiveleadershipconference.com/YFF. Your Financial Future 2.0. Your next chapter starts here.
School violence on the rise, reports piling up, videos spreading across social media. What's really happening on school premises? Why is it happening? And what about beyond the compound? This Monday at 8:30 p.m., Beyond the Headlines goes Inside the Crisis, hosted by Colin Dow with guests Eddie Monty Greenwich, Woman Inspector number 486 Maureen John of the RGPF Community Relations Department, and Chief Education Officer Dr. Diane Abel Jeffrey. Don't miss it. Beyond the Headlines, Monday at 8:30 p.m. only on GBN.
Springs Food Mart, Excel Plaza, Clear Vision Eye Center, Chillaxing Cafe, Answer Coating, Victory Bar, proud partners of the 19th Annual Hubbard's Legends in Concert, Sunday, November 9th, 5 p.m., Grenada Trade Center.
welcome back to The Point. Of course, Mr. Sylvan, Dr. the Honorable Sylvan McIntyre, with all his wealth of experience and knowledge he shares with us every Monday morning. This morning, wants to touch on a very sensitive, critical topic, crisis communication.
Yes.
Let's go.
So, crisis communication, and you would probably want to figure out, I'll give a definition as to what that is. But as I said, every time we look for a topic that we consider to be relevant, there is a reason behind it.
Yeah.
So I look for a sense of vision, intuition, and so on, and guiding in terms of how we should tweak the topics on the program. And we've had this recent engagement. Part of it was with NADMA, and the aspect of it was media communication and how the media communicates during disaster periods and emergencies and so forth. But rolling back on it, I had, when it really hit home, when my son got killed, and how the information in a crisis period like that was relayed, it left a lot to be desired of the system. And so, again, as we spoke earlier on in our intro, that what we do is not just for our own benefit, but our own experiences and our knowledge. We try to use it to help others. And so, recognizing that when things happen, the process of communication is not really getting to the point where it should get, and how the message goes across, and sometimes the messenger makes a whole lot of the difference. I thought that it would be prudent and relevant for us to be able to expound on it a little bit today, and then have feedback from members of the public in terms of their own experience, their own contribution towards how they think the process of communicating to persons or the information across, without looking for just the sensationalism that comes with it, but to make it relevant, realistic, meaningful, and empathetic to those who are victims. So crisis communication is that mode of getting information to your audience in a manner that the information is, in all local terms, it is palatable, digestible, and it reaches the audience with the message and would direct to the intended result. So in essence, in a simpler way, it's the mode of getting information to persons when there is an adverse or a crisis or a situation beyond the normal, where information and direction need to be conveyed. And so we have quite a number of them. We have situations where there are fatalities. And oftentimes our media entities and now our social media, there's a competing space for sharing that information and how we treat it to members of the public, and in particular direct victims of the situation. And what we found in our research is that victims in our societies and those who are relatives of the victim become re-victimized, because in first instance, the process and how the initial information is conveyed is not through the best medium, and is not relayed through the right process, and the wording and the crafting of the messaging itself leaves a lot to be desired in how we do it. Albeit, I still want to, give some compliments to our media entities in this day who go out beyond the call of duty, beyond regular times, to be able to access the information and to bring it to members of the public. But there is a challenge in ensuring that we get the message across in the way that it should. But what is really bothering at times is that people within the professional field and the professional setting, from whom you would expect a particular tone and style of messaging should come, it doesn't really happen. So when there is an accident, or when there is a fatality, or where there is a situation where you may have mass destruction or effects on individuals and the environment, every message has its impact and its intent. And so the way it is it is crafted and delivered has its impact. But in addition to that, the messenger has to be right. So there are some people who may not be the best persons to handle particular situations. And at times, we do not look at that. We figure if Innocent sits behind the turntable and he has a headphone in his head and he can articulate properly, he is the person that should relay every information that comes, and that would not be the case. And you may have people in particular workplaces and so forth, professional places, and you may think that when something happens, because they are the one behind the information desk, they are the ones to share. Every situation basically presents itself differently, and this is why in workplaces and in professional setting, you have to be able to do the professional ethics, the assigning of terms of reference, and you will have your standard operating procedure that would guide how every situation should be handled and what processes. And I remember when I was in the RGPF, in the Community Relations Department, it was a directive from the commissioner that every person should not speak to members of the public. And even if you had the Community Relations Department that is responsible for relaying the commissioner's information and information about the police force, I think now they have a full PR department and so on with an expert assigned to them. Congratulations. But the messaging and the individual with the messaging, at times, the commissioner had to change it because the kind of messaging you want and the impact you want, because of the demeanor, because of the sensitivity of what the situation may be, you will have to change the individual to relay the message.
So it even in this situation, it all boils down to knowing your human resource and who is most appropriate for particular scenarios.
Absolutely. In addition to that, we had a meeting recently, and part of the function of the Public Information Committee, I think relative to the national system, was looking at messaging and so on relative to particular hazards. And with business entities, particularly even media houses, that if you are interacting and you are responsible for providing information to members of the public, for instance, Met Services is a critical entity and they will have to provide information to the public ever so often. The health department, they are critical and will have to provide information to the public ever so often. Similar with Ministry of Agriculture, Tourism, and the likes.
NADMA.
Exactly. So you have to design messages that suits particular hazards and particular situations. So when something happens, your message is basically standard, but text and aspect of it would be tweaked to suit the current situation. And very often, that aspect is ignored. But one of the areas that I want to zero in very strongly on is when there is a fatality. When that information has to be relayed to the persons who are relative or the next of kin of persons who may have been in that situation. A lot of time, Innocent, there is quite a bit left to be desired. People who lost would just see on social media an image of maybe somebody lying on the street, maybe in a vehicle, maybe by the river or something of that sort.
Maybe hanging from a tree. And people are not the persons who are responsible technically in relaying the information often do not take this into consideration. And I mentioned the aspect of forced to the information and forced to break the news, generating the sensationalism that should come behind it. I am popular, or people look out for me, or people follow me. I have my own following, and there's my pox that I would get behind that. So the quicker I get that story out, is it better for me. Let me just butt in here, right?
Yeah.
In terms of the media fraternity,
yeah.
All right, the media is tasked with the responsibility for disseminating information out there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Whereas we have, even the Ministry of Health, the Airport Meteorological Services and so forth, they don't have media houses.
No, they don't.
So they still have to come through the media.
Absolutely.
Now, isn't it therefore absolutely critical that the media fraternity has an SOP or standard operating procedure to deal with these sort of situations. Okay, whenever there's a homicide or something like that, this is the approach and methodology that should be applied. Whenever it's natural disaster, shouldn't there be a format, a pattern of how it's done?
Yes, you hit it absolutely right. And I think I am not too sure how far we are in this process, but recently there was this engagement with NADMA, and they were reviewing and going through the instruments and found that they've been existing for all of these years, and there are lots and lots of gray areas. A lot of things have been actioned on principles and precedents and on customs and norms, but they have not become SOPs. And we are very good at being impromptu, being spontaneous, and get things done. But what you find now, we are suffering from that planning process where you have succession planning and you have contingencies to deal with situation. So you're absolutely correct that has to be, and I think this is where the national system is now trying to get its section in order to ensure that these things are standardized and people understand the processes, and it goes beyond that. I think, and that's where the electronic bill came in one time, where people who make information or access and make it public, they are subject to some
accountability,
and penalties for it. And I think that need to be revised to an extent where it incorporates and become more stringent, more forceful for the unofficial reporters. Now it becomes a lot easier to track people who release information, and so the state mechanism for enforcing these things have to become more rigid, so that people become more sensitive about releasing information, even if you have access to. But you must understand that you do not want to create a worse situation out of a bad situation, because already you may have people who are grieving over a situation, and then the way it is handled, the way the information is delivered, has a lot to do with the recovery and the coping process. And so one of the reasons why we are hosting and having this topic today, because from listening to other people and from our own experiences, we found that not a lot of thought goes into it. Imagine when you were at the radio station when my son was killed, and the first call I got then from an official source, "You're missing anybody from your house?"
No, that's how it was done?
Of course, that's the way it was. Wow. I was like, so you're not missing anybody from your house? And I was like, no, what are you saying? And the reason why I'm saying this is not to bash anybody.
No.
And even if I bash, I don't think I should make excuse for it. No. Because I understand the impact that had when I found out the reason why.
He was asking, and in that kind of a manner. And so I know, with due respect to the entities involved, there's a training process and there are SOPs and how. But again, the messenger may make the difference to a situation. Mm-hmm. And so it is saying to us, should we revisit, and rather than centralizing that process of the disseminating of information in fatalities, should we not expand it more to the departments who are more exposed and make it across the board, that every individual understand by some way or the other, you may have to do the breaking news of a situation that should be handled differently. We've known situations where people freak out totally based on how the information disseminated. Notwithstanding the fact, hence the reason why it is so important that you have a professional scientific approach to it.
Yes.
Because I might be as strong as I am, mm-hmm. But I'm going to go back, I think time has elapsed, so people should be more into dealing with it. When our beloved former managing director died, Odette Campbell.
Right.
I was on the set.
Right.
But I was crying away.
Right.
Maybe that shouldn't have been the place that I should have been at that time, because I could have been spreading sorrow.
But were you by force of circumstance in the job at the time when it happened?
Yeah. That's when we got the news.
So then you had to have been where you were at the time.
Yeah.
And when you get the news, it's a natural reaction to the news. But immediately thereafter, based on the impact it had, then you had to be pulled out from that front to be able to deliver. But you could not have, in my opinion, I know you could not have helped because of what. And you're absolutely right. Those things are really not taken most serious into that kind of a consideration when things happen. People get up, they call somebody, they just speak to somebody, and if you ask our psychosocial therapists and experts, they would say to you that those initial information and reaction has a lot to do with your coping mechanism and your resilience thereafter, because there isn't a second time to make a first impression. So that first time when something hits you and it comes in, it could have such devastating effects that it goes on for a long time into your system. It goes in like a virus or something like that, and it keeps walking away. And every time something happens, that first occasion rewinds and hits all in here. So we're saying that process has to be improved tremendously, and there are trainings that are available modernly to teach people how to communicate during aspects of crisis.
So we looked at the dissemination of information through fatality or a passing or something like that. When we come back, we take a commercial break. When we come back, we look at how we share the information in the case of a disaster, natural disaster,
correct,
and other things like that.
Yes, sir.
Folks, this is To The Point. It's 19 minutes on to 9 o'clock. We take another commercial break. We'll be back after these messages. Don't you go anywhere.
School violence on the rise, reports piling up, videos spreading across social media. What's really happening on school premises? Why is it happening? And what about beyond the compound? This Monday at 8:30 p.m., Beyond the Headlines goes Inside the Crisis, hosted by Colin Dow with guests Eddie Monty Greenwich, Woman Inspector number 486 Maureen John of the RGPF Community Relations Department, and Chief Education Officer Dr. Diane Abel Jeffrey. Don't miss it. Beyond the Headlines, Monday at 8:30 p.m. only on GBN.
Are you ready to take charge of your money, build wealth, and protect your family's legacy? Then join us on October 9th, 2025 at Radisson Grenada Beach Resort for your Financial Future 2.0, Legacy, Literacy, and Liberation, a one-day financial summit designed to break cycles, build wealth, and leave a lasting legacy. You'll gain real-life budgeting hacks, a money mindset reboot, steps to create generational wealth, and practical tips on investing, estate planning, insurance, health, and business finance, all from expert speakers who know how to turn knowledge into action. With 2 inspirational keynotes, 3 powerful panel discussions, and 6 breakout sessions, you will leave with your personalized action plan for success. Don't wait. Secure your seat today. Tickets are EC $350 at disruptiveleadershipconference.com/YFF. Your Financial Future 2.0. Your next chapter starts here.
Welcome back, viewers and listeners. We're on To The Point this morning with our own Sylvan McIntyre, and I'm so happy to be with you. We looked at one aspect of communication in crisis
situation.
All right, we looked at the human aspect, dealing with passing on information to humans when the other human is adversely affected and so forth. But we want to look at it, and we are going to open the lines after this little discourse. How should we transmit information in case of natural disasters and so forth?
Yeah. So, whether it's a natural disaster, human or anthropogenic or otherwise caused, or whether it's a crisis situation, the crafting of messages, as we mentioned, it has to be short enough, precise, relevant, audience friendly, so that the message could get across in the simplest manner within the shortest possible time. And too often, the originators of messages, they forget that you have multiplicity of audiences and different diaspora and different people that you need to meet, and so your messaging and your information must be tweaked so that every person technically should understand it. If there is any difference or ambiguity, it should be very minimal. And that's across the board. Now, communicating through disaster emergency situation caused by natural events or otherwise, that in itself is a different, there's a different methodology that is applied, because one, there are phases and stages of the information process, or how that situation itself would unfold. For instance, you may have tropical cyclones that are likely to impact, and before they impact, there are messages and messaging and advisories that would follow. There are those with what you call the slow onset that gives you the warning period, and those with the rapid onset where it just spring on you and something happen. Same process apply. The information, if not in all cases, should be pre-designed, so that if Innocence sits there and GT sits on the other side and Janelle comes and she said, the messaging could be pulled and delivered in very similar manner. It may just have to have the date and the time adjusted, but the messaging, after it may have gone through the mold, the press, the checking and everything else to ensure that it is where it should be, then that messaging must become standard. A communication process has an intro, a beginning, it has a body, it has a summary, it has a conclusion, it has an end, technically, and they follow through. So in other words, when messaging goes out in any form, whether it is caused by a natural event or otherwise, there must be what you call the ground tuning of the information, or the figuring out what kind of effect that message had, and is it really meeting. A couple years ago, you might have done that message that you had that was generic, but your audience has changed so quickly. Do you need to tweak that message, or do you need to change the medium? And you may have a personality. As a matter of fact, there were times in natural event situation, there were radio stations or media houses and television houses, general media, where people were playing the messaging relevant to the situation, but they had a different kind of music in the background.
Yeah.
And they would have a different conversation while the information is being relayed. That is conflict of the information and what you have muddying of the water, so that the information itself isn't taken serious by the people who should hear it, because
that interferes with your whole psyche as the recipient of the information.
Absolutely.
You can tell me that a disaster is looming. Okay, Beryl is 20 miles out, but you're playing the Jump and Wave song and so forth. Even if you're telling me Beryl is outside there, so be prepared, but I'm telling you to jump and wave in the meantime.
And do you think that we've crossed that hurdle? Because I think for 21 years ago, which is just the other day, and it seems 21 years seem to be a lot, but it's so close, so new and relevant in our memory. Ivan, a lot of people did not take the information serious.
No.
And we followed, when I was through the system, we followed how the messages were disseminated and how other houses other than the central agency dealt with it. People were conflicting the information, and so the members of the public said, well, that couldn't be too serious. Because if they're playing that kind of and they bring in the information in that, it can be something serious. So it takes also the harmonizing. I don't think the re-educating or reculturing of our persons, but I think it takes a situational awareness and an information platform for our media houses in disseminating information, that we understand the role and the importance that each person and each entity has to play. So it means that the process led by the Government Information Service, that's how the national system has it, that when there is a crisis situation where you need national impact, the Government Information Service, they take lead. And every house, every media entity in state, they should follow the lead from the chair of that committee that comes from the Government Information Service. I don't think a lot of people understand that. And so Government Information Service is not what happens with the government, what happens in country. And so when the national plan and structure and system were written, it gave them override superior authority to ensure that that which comes, because the government voice is through the GIS. Right. And so if the government represents the state, it feels almost natural, it feels and look that way, that they should control technically what happens nationally. And not just control, maybe control is kind of a strong, but they should be directing, which is similar to control.
Control, yeah. Anyway, if they have to take charge, they have to take charge
of the process.
Yes, of the process.
Yes. Yeah. To ensure that the messages, it is central, and obviously, when something happens, you look towards the leadership, and there always has to be a process of who leads what. People always need directive. People always need guidance. And everybody should never be left to do everything, because everybody's responsibility is nobody's responsibility. So when there is a situation, there always has to be an obvious leader, and there has to be an entity that should lead the process. So in this case, where you have a national crisis, the Government Information Service takes superior responsibility for all of the disseminating of information. Once that information is crafted by the state mechanism, all other entity disseminating that information, you could tweak it to your audience as you deem fit, but the central message must remain the same.
So viewers and listeners, you are there and you've been the recipient of information that maybe wasn't pleasant information and so forth, and it impacted you one way or the other. We'd like you to share on the importance of how disseminating information appropriately matters. We do have a call?
Yes.
Good morning, caller. Welcome.
Morning, Innocent, and morning to Mr. McIntyre. I'm glad that Mr. McIntyre spoke about the central role of the Government Information Service. Because I've long held that whenever you have a crisis, all medias should, out of obligation, broadcast the same thing probably at the same time. What has happened over the years is that different people saying different things, and it's very confusing. I want to point out how the information during the COVID, the major announcement, how it affected people adversely, especially market vendors. When people were asked to either close up or something like that, some people lost their material because they wasn't given adequate time to do things. So, and of course, Mr. McIntyre said about leadership. Of course, we didn't have much good leadership at the time. In fact, I think your leadership, Mr. McIntyre, was undermined. You should have played a more pivotal role at the time, but we're not going to that now. So definitely, we should work on that. And the other thing about that, we have to help people to become more civil. We are not civil with each other. We seem to be fighting an eternal war, and people think it's only the political wars. We have all kind of social war and economic. We need to be able to understand when it's time to come together for us to be at one accord. But we are not. So we have to help that, and that is the reason why I keep saying we need to take a community development-led approach to a lot of the things we're doing because of the existential threat to life and property in this era. Finally, I want to say that during the COVID, I heard in terms of crisis communication, there was people was getting up for a major show. I think it was organized by Judah. I think if I'm right, I'm subject to correction. Judah Promotion was here. And I was very pleased when one of the persons came and told people, that, look, in as much as you are preparing for that, we had to cancel this thing because so and so. These are the kind of examples we need so that people will come forward and our leadership come forward and help people to really calm their nerves and be able to be prepared for whatever coming. Thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you very much, caller.
Absolutely. There's not a lot of follow-up from this caller's comment. I think he's on point. But an expansion on that, with one of the things that we were going to say this morning is particular marginalized audience, the physically challenged, or the person may have different forms of disability, seeing, hearing, or otherwise, and how do we cater for those kinds of and types of individuals and entities and so on across that would need that. And I think in our state, the persons who are vision impaired and so forth, what really do we have to provide the information for them? What do medium? There is the AI now that can tweak things to suit any type of grouping. Have we gone to that point where we embrace modern technology to ensure that all groups are inclusive in our communication and in our information processes? So I think now that we are reviewing the public education and information committees for going through disasters in different crisis situation. I think all the groups that are indigent or those that are disabled or have those kind of challenges, the messages and the medium must be arranged or must be designed, created to include them as well.
Let me ask this. In this day and age where anyone who has a smartphone and can read and write properly to set up a Facebook account automatically becomes a reporter.
That should not be.
How do we deal with this? Because 90% of the times, before we get a formal news item, it's there on Facebook.
Yeah. So that goes back to one of the points we made earlier in terms of the Electronic Act. I think it's gone past a bill now. It's an act where persons who provide information or have access to and make in public space that they do have certain penalties. I think we now should review it in terms of the enforcement aspect of it. There are a lot of things that are on our books as laws and so forth, but the enforcing mechanism and the follow-through mechanism and the investigative mechanism leaves again a lot to be desired. We very short-tempered in terms of going through investigations. If something happened, we look at it for 7 days and so forth, and after that it goes kind of a cold or dead. And there are some things, if you really dig them really deep, you realize,
there was an issue there.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And so I think in our new era, we have to look at how do we cater for those groups and how do we deal with people who make access of information and throw it out there in public space that may lead, as the last caller said, into some chaos, confusion or otherwise that should not have been. And that is something, again, our state mechanism should really be able to follow through and ensure that we build on it. But in a nutshell, we generalize the whole aspect of crisis communication and recognize that it needs national workshopping and it needs the leadership of the processes to stand the ground to ensure that through a consultative process we have agreed that this is the way it should go. And this is the standard operating procedure. These are the mechanisms that we are going to use, and this is how it's going to happen. And we mentioned before that there are times people need to know things. There are times that things are done on behalf of people, but it is not well known. it is kept as best secret, or there are people who are responsible for us in different ways. They have good intention for us. They have good things, but we're not aware.
Yeah.
And so the whole aspect of generating the mechanism for making us aware and making us know, that is something that we need to be able to build on. And we have to be able to do that in a rapid manner right now, because things are unfolding so quickly on us that the playing catch-up days are gone. We have to be ahead of the game.
We have to plan ahead and execute.
Absolutely.
We have to ensure that we have a channel for, because, I mean, it really peeves me at times, someone dies in, not a pleasant way. And before that information could be processed through CID and the relevant authorities and so forth, then it becomes a news item. It's out on Facebook.
It is. And I don't know how many persons we've heard from our law enforcement that have been made examples or penalized for such activities or actions. I don't think there could be, or there may have been persons who happen to have paid certain, penalties for these.
But it wasn't made public,
and that is one of the reasons.
So it's not a deterrent.
It's not, and there will be repeats of those situations, because people are not following on that. If I do this, these are the penalties I am likely to face.
We've exhausted the time. I'd give you. Yeah, it's
wow.
Yeah,
yes,
it's 10:01 here.
So recognizing where we are, we think that communication in any form is critical to anything. The medium through which and the manner, the mechanisms through which that information process is transmitting is something that is critical, as we mentioned before, to the coping and the recovery processes. Therefore, it is incumbent on us, it is our responsibility for us in the space of providing that information, that we ensure that there are standard operating procedures, the messages are designed to meet the relevant audiences, and it is delivered in its simplicity so that understanding and follow-up and actions could be followed.
Mr. McIntyre, as always, thank you for sharing with us. I do know that the listening and viewing audience, they really got good information as always this morning, and just keep on doing what you're doing, man.
Yes.
Even in a mode where it's not even recognized.
Yeah.
But the time will come when people can look back and say, "But Mr. McIntyre did tell us that."
Well, we've had it a few times already.
Right. Yeah. Definitely.
Well, yeah. That's okay.
Keep on your advocacy for road safety and just general good life practices.
Yes.
Keep on doing what you do, and if the good Lord spare lives, we look forward to another engagement next Monday.
Blessing, my brother.
All right. Always.
Yeah.
And folks, in case you didn't know it, we're tight even behind the scenes, not just on the TV. We're good like that for years.
Of course.
Okay? So folks, that's it for To The Point. It's been a pleasure being with you this morning, and I do want to wish you a very good day. Have a good one. I love you. Bye-bye.